Good morning to you. It is Saturday Fantasy Baseball, and boy, is it Saturday Fantasy Baseball around here. So we have a bunch of drafts going on, and I'm going to go ahead and just wait a second until the sound comes through the chat room. As you all know, that's what we do around here. We like to interact with our live chat room friends, and we do have a good group of people already filing in today. So we're going to talk some drafts, we're going to talk some news, nuggets, tidbits, injuries, and we're definitely going to compare some players today because as you go through the drafts, I happen to have 5 different slow drafts going on right now. And of course, you run up and as they go along, you start to say, should I take this guy or this guy? And I have some examples for you today. Maybe or maybe not, they will come in handy to help you guys out in your fantasy baseball drafts this year. We have 3 best ball leagues going on with our wonderful chat room community, and we just appreciate all of you so much, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And these best ball drafts, they have a completely different format than normal Roto. It's points leagues, it's 40 rounds, it's the computer picking out your best team every day, every week, and it puts together the team for you. So that's going to be an interesting, and of course the player rankings are completely different than what you'll find in normal leagues. Now let's see what we got going on here. Say hi, Leonard.
Hi there, everybody.
Leonard is here, of course. We are.
Sound good?
Sound is not good yet, but it is working. So these on-demand people are listening to me babble on at this moment.
Okay. Come on, let's get the sound, man. Let's get the sound.
Keep refreshing, Leonard. You're not even checking it for me?
I am checking it. Are you kidding?
You're in the Fan Tracks leagues.
I understand. I just, because I just got out of the,
It should be on shortly. I'm expecting to hear it. There it is, people. There it is. So let me just tell the chat room that the sound is good. All is good. Welcome aboard and all of that. Great to see you all. I'm happy to see Laura here. I was going to text her this morning when she picked Freddie Peralta, but I decided to just go ahead and put that in my notes today. So we're talking Freddie Peralta today. I hope Malpal, and Malpal, you also gave me some incentive. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to do some notes, of course. Let me pull up my notes. That would be helpful, right? Let me get my notes pulled up. What am I doing? 1 second. But I can tell you by heart what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about some Acuna, who did not play yesterday due to knee soreness, but we have a little more info. Not a lot, a little. They seem to feel like it's not too much of a big deal here, but let me just get my notes pulled up, and we're going to talk about, there was a discussion on one of the groups on Facebook, Baseball 365, who puts on a great group. There's a lot of great, knowledgeable baseball people in there talking about fantasy sports. And a guy said up there, posed the question that he could trade either Justin Steele or Grayson Rodriguez for Gunnar Henderson. And I know Eddie's a big Orioles fan, and these 2 Orioles, Gunnar and Grayson, they're very popular with the fantasy baseball community. Of course, Gunnar Henderson was much better last year and absolutely deserves to be pushed up the draft board. Grayson Rodriguez, though, was definitely the favorite of the answers in this post. I started reading the answers, and of course, every person said, absolutely keep Grayson over Steele. Grayson's a better pick, Grayson this, Grayson that. And I'm just going, what the heck is going on? I mean, I get, and of course, I start responding to these people, and they say, well, Grayson has higher upside than Steele, and I guess if you want to draft on upside, go be my guest. I mean, I hope that you're in my leagues against me, but then I feel like I am definitely in the minority in this case, and I'm happy to be in the minority, and I'll try to make my case for Justin Steele. But there was a poll on Twitter, on X, also that said, who do you choose, Cole Ragans or Justin Steele? And so actually already had that in my notes today to talk the difference between Steele and Cole Ragans. But then Malpal this morning absolutely solidified the fact that I have to bring up Grayson Rodriguez discussion because Malpal just drafted Grayson Rodriguez ahead of Justin Steele in our best ball league. I texted Malpal and I didn't get a response back in time for the show, but I'm sure Malpal, go ahead and tell us in the chat room your reasoning for choosing Grayson Rodriguez, and don't just say upside. You have to say exactly why. You know how it goes, but we'll get to that later. Also, Laura, you drafted Freddie Peralta. That's another one that I'm questioning. In fact, last night I put it on auto when I went to sleep. One pick, and I chose Freddie Peralta thanks to George Hubschman, who I find to be one of the smartest people that I know regarding baseball, and he keeps talking about Freddie Peralta. He keeps saying this guy's going to have a breakout year, and we're going to discuss Freddie Peralta because when I got up this morning, Lenny said, "What? You drafted Freddie Peralta?" And I said, "Yes." He kind of gave me this, like, not a good move. And so I second-guessed myself. I went in. It was still my turn technically in the draft. So I decided to, instead of draft Freddie Peralta, I chose Will Smith, the catcher. And then Laura turned around and drafted Freddie Peralta. We have to talk a little about Freddie Peralta, not a lot. We're also going to discuss another option that I'm faced with in a very slow, deep 15-team mixed league where I waited maybe a little too long for a shortstop. We're going to compare a couple shortstops today, and I'd love to get your insight in the chat room. So let's get started with the fact that Ronald Acuna, look, if you get the first pick in the draft, you're drafting Ronald Acuna. There's no doubt about it. I mean, unless you make a mistake, everybody's picking him across the board. I don't recall a season where nearly every single first pick is Ronald Acuna. There's been one NFBC contest so far this year where somebody did not pick Ronald Acuna. So this guy is over and all the favorite in fantasy. And when you have to draft him. So people keep wishing, I hope I get the first pick so I could get Ronald Acuna. But don't forget, with that first pick comes the fact that you have to wait now a whole ton of picks before you get another pick. And by the time it gets back to you, a lot of people are choosing to get 2 starting pitchers at that point. But I'll tell you what, I got the honor of getting Acuna in one of these best ball leagues, and I was happy about it. I'm not so happy about it now because your whole draft depends on this guy. Also, there are so many good picks between Acuna and the time that you get your pick again that you almost have to go pitching. And if you don't, that's fine. Your whole draft relies on this Acuna character. So I've never liked having the first pick, and I can't say that I'm that happy about it, especially since yesterday he was out of the game. He has his right knee sore. Snitker, the manager of the Braves, he says that Acuna is not scheduled for an MRI. He does not think it's going to be serious. Acuna started feeling soreness in his knee on Thursday when he was in a rundown during the game, and he was scratched from yesterday's lineup. The good news is he was able to take batting practice before the contest, and Snitker said if it was the regular season, Acuna would have been in the game. So there's a lot of hustle and bustle going on now. It'll be interesting to see if this consistent Acuna being the first pick changes a little bit at this point. I'm sure there's going to be some people out there with a little hesitation, but then you have to say, well, who am I going to choose instead of Acuna? According to the management, this guy is going to be fine. He is going to have his right knee examined by a doctor just to make sure, but he is not scheduled for an MRI, so that is good news. Let me check the chat room here because maybe we got some news from Malpal. Okay, right. Malpal. Hello, Bobby Kleinau and the Kleinau family. You know what? I have to say, I don't know if Dennis is here or whatever, but we have a great family, Dr. Dennis Timko. We have a lot of great families that come to our chat room, and we love kids. So, of course, as soon as I see Bobby Kleinow in there, I think of kids, children, the most wonderful family in the country. But I don't know, maybe Dr. Timko's family comes in second, or there's quite a few families in our chat room that we love. So I don't mean to leave anybody out. We have a lot. But speaking of families, little Aiden Timko, who I met when he was 6 years old in St. Louis, the kid stole my heart, and now he's 10 years old, and we invited him to get into his first league, which is this best ball league with his dad. He has his own team. He's drafting an excellent team. The kid has school, he has karate, he's got piano lessons, he's got baseball practice, and all of the great things, just like the Kleinow family does. And we're so pleased to have Aiden in our league for his very first fantasy baseball league. And I hope, Bobby Kleinow, that when Noah is ready to play, he will come and join one of our leagues. It's a slow draft. These best ball leagues don't have any team maintenance, so all of the fun is in drafting, and we just can't wait to get it started, and we're excited about that. Malpal said Grayson is over Steele in the best ball. It was a tough choice. King Turd says Grayson is better than Steele, who is better than Reagans. James K. brings up the fact that Steele only has 2 pitches. Yes, he relies on 2 pitches most of the time. That is true. Triple Play says Steele's behind the numbers metrics are very suspect. Please do explain what you mean by which metrics are you talking about. I looked at all the metrics today, but of course, you're welcome to your own opinion. There's a lot of, like I said, I am absolutely in the minority here, and we just love having the debate. And of course, I love to debate with people on Facebook too, even though I probably come off sounding quite bitchy sometimes. Anyway, Leonard Donaldson is here. Zelmo is here. Great to see you both. Eddie, good job. Great to see you. White Sox Al, we have 30 of you in the chat room today. Laura, Malpal, Post is here, 1958. James K. George, I was just talking about you, and you better believe we're going to be discussing some Freddie Peralta. I don't know if you heard at the beginning what I was saying, but you might want to listen to what I said at the beginning about the fact that I put Peralta on my team in the middle of the night and changed my mind before anybody saw. That's one of the beauties of being the commissioner, so, okay. 30-year-old third baseman Matt Chapman has a job. He agreed to terms with San Francisco Giants, 3 years, $54 million, $20 million this year, $18 million next year, and $16 million in 26. He also has the ability to opt out after each of the first 2 seasons. I'm loving these short-term contracts with opt-outs. It lights the fire under these guys, meaning they're still playing for a contract, basically, because if they're that good, they can opt out of their Wincy contract and go ahead and get signed for twice that if they're that good, right? So they're playing to win. Now, he had 240 batting average last season and a 330 on-base percentage, 17 homers, 54 RBIs, 581 plate appearances with the Blue Jays. Now he's with San Francisco. What happens to J.D. Davis then? So we are assuming that he's going to split time at third base with J.D. Davis. But Matt Chapman crushes lefties, okay? So he will almost certainly be the go-to guy against lefties. That may or may not be a good thing. I mean, is it going to be a platoon role? Because if he only gets to hit against lefties, it's a bad idea. They didn't say that. They just are saying, they're pointing out that he's great against lefties. So Matt Chapman, fantasy relevance, I'd say it's pretty disappointing where he ended up because, number one, San Francisco is an absolute pitching park. Number two, J.D. Davis will get time there, so he's not going to get full at bats. May get the majority of them. I'd like to hear what George thinks of this. White Sox Al says Acuna, irritation in his right meniscus. He's going to see a doctor, but yes, according to RotoWire, they're not going to do an MRI on him. So And Big Al also says not to like Wilmer Flores. You know I've been a fan of Wilmer for a long time. I agree with you. It's just another... but Wilmer does play everything, albeit he doesn't play defense well. Not great, but he can man all of the positions, so... at least in the infield. Now, Matt Chapman will look to, when he does get to hit, okay, he will be in the middle of the lineup, and you know how the saying goes, the batters that hit get in the lineup. So we'll see how that works out with J.D. Davis and Matt Chapman over there. Now, Taijuan Walker, you know I've been a fan of this guy, I don't know, he's been around for 10 years, so I've been on and off a fan of him. He has not pitched yet. He is now a Phillies, okay? He's a pitcher for the Phillies. He's 31 years old. He reported, get this, normal spring training soreness, okay? So, number one, he has not pitched yet. So, he took batting practice. No, a bullpen session yesterday, and now he's sore. Rob Thomas says he'll be backed off for a couple of days. Normal spring training soreness occurs after you play in a game or two, I think. What were you doing all off season? You didn't stretch your arm out at all? Normal spring training soreness does not come in the first day. Okay, anyway, here's what we got with Taijuan Walker. This guy is not a target. Do not target him. His ADP is 438. He is not the Taijuan Walker that he used to be when he could get away with not being that good. He's only 31, and his ERA last year was 4.38, which is not horrible. It's not great, but it's not horrible. But his xFIP was 4.83, and his Sierra was 4.97. So those are way worse than 4.38, okay? He wasn't trusted to throw a single postseason inning for the Phillies, all right? He was actually lucky with his 4.38 ERA. As I told you, his xFIP and Sierra tell a completely different story. Also, he's walking too many guys. He doesn't strike out enough guys, okay? Doesn't ever strike out as many guys as he used to. He's absolutely not a guy to look at. But here's a guy that might seem a little interesting, especially to guys like Malpal, who loves to look at ground ball and strikeout percentage. You got Spencer Turnbull, who spent most of his life with the Detroit Tigers. Now he is a Phillies, okay? He's competing for a spot in the rotation. He's 31 years old also. But here's what he does, okay? Let me tell you, his strikeout percentage is 21.9. This is what he did in 2021. He didn't pitch at all in 2022. And when he came back last year, he wasn't that good. So he had Tommy John surgery in 2022. He only had 15 total starts in the majors and minors combined in 2023. He also had neck and toe injuries. His ERA and his WHIP look horrible enough to make his ADP 600. Nobody's drafting this guy. Okay, his fastball was down a few ticks from what it used to be. He's 31 years old, but let me tell you the positive, because his career ground ball rate is over 50%. The 2 seasons prior to last season, and I'm not even looking at last season because, like I said, he didn't pitch very much last season, and he was coming back from Tommy John. So a healthy Spencer Turnbull could get back into action with his 50% ground ball rate, and he does strike out a decent amount of batters over his career. 22% in 2021, okay? Last year he only struck out 16%, but you're looking at his ground ball plus his strikeout rate, and this is a guy that could absolutely do better for you than Taijuan Walker. So while Taijuan Walker is being drafted, albeit not very much, Spencer Turnbull, and I'd also like to point you in the direction of Christopher Sanchez, who is another guy that is going under the radar, absolutely has the underlying metrics to be something decent, and I believe that Spencer Turnbull will take over Taijuan Walker's job and be in that rotation. I see the chat room is great, and Aiden just doing great. I love Ellie. So you know what? Here's the thing. Ellie is so exciting. I want to draft Ellie so bad. I have so many teams this year, and these best ball leagues give me the most perfect opportunity to take players that are exciting that I might not otherwise draft, okay? So yesterday, I nearly took Ellie over Pete Alonso. That's how much I want Ellie on the team, but you literally have to draft him that early to get him. Aiden is drafting and putting together such a great little team. I'm so proud of him, okay? I don't want to spend all my time doting on the 10-year-old Aiden and what a great kid he is. But, I told you he stole my heart when he was 6. We've got his baseball cards on our fridge. Every year he sends it to us in a Valentine's Day card. Plus he plays the piano, he pitches, he hits. He's just a stud little kid. So anyway, Aiden, just love having you aboard. Your team is great. We love it. He's doing great. So here we go with Spencer Turnbull. I want to hear from the chat room. Do you agree with me that Spencer Turnbull will be a better pick than Taijuan Walker if he can get back to what he was before the Tommy John surgery? We'll see. Keep an eye on this guy at spring training because I'll tell you what, he could put up some decent numbers for Spencer Turnbull. Royce Lewis, grand slam, 3-0 pitch with the bases loaded to Royce Lewis, right? The man who has hit grand slams at a rate unseen in MLB history, right? Now, Royce Lewis, okay, I have to be excited for this guy, although I will tell you, I have him in a keeper league. No chance I'm drafting Royce Lewis where he's going in ADP this year, okay? I think he's like 41 or something. He is going so early. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't have great stuff. He's got all the 5 tools that you could possibly ask for. But here's the thing. Last year, he didn't play in his first Major League game until May 29th, okay? He had rehab from his second torn ACL. Those 2 torn ACLs, same leg, 2 consecutive seasons. Also, and let me tell you what he does in between injuries because that's what everybody loves him for. He comes back from his second torn right ACL in consecutive seasons and he immediately hits .326 with 4 homers and .827 OPS in 26 games that I told you sandwiched in between his injuries. He was shelved again 6 weeks with an oblique injury. And of course, sandwiched in again, comes back, hits .295 with 11 homers and a .992 OPS in 32 games, sandwiched between his 3rd serious injury in late September, a strained left hamstring. He did return for the playoffs where he did it all again. 4 home runs, a 1.11 OPS in 6 games. When this guy's in the lineup, there is no doubt he is the guy. He hit 4 grand slams. He's the first player in MLB history with 5 grand slams among his first 16 career home runs. He has great plate discipline. I'm telling you, you want a 5-tool player? You got one in Royce Lewis. You also got a 6-tool, which is I love to get injured type stuff, okay? Now, I mean, this guy is more exciting than Buxton ever was. He's on the same team, by the way. So, the Minnesota Twins are a little bit interesting this year to me. What do you think on the chat room? Leonard Donaldson says, I stole his pick out of the top of his queue with Chas McCormick. I was trying to decide between McCormick or TJ Friedl, which is another guy that George Hubschman directed me to the other day. I'll tell you what, I wouldn't do half as good in my drafts if it wasn't for George coming around and telling me, just bringing up names of guys that I haven't been paying attention to. I have to admit, I think my biggest downfall is the fact that, I listen to Lenny every day. That's not my downfall. But my downfall is that I go with familiar players a lot. I didn't know anything about TJ Friedl. I didn't know much about Nolan Jones. I didn't know much about Nolan Gorman. I mean, these are guys that if George hadn't brought up to me, I probably would have just kept passing them up. You know what I mean? So I'm telling you, George is a mastermind of baseball. Anyway, tell me how you feel about Royce. Yes, he's exciting, but good grief, this kid gets injured so much. He is 24 years old, one of the most exciting players in baseball. All I can say is I'm so grateful that I drafted him a couple years ago in our AL-only keeper league, and I'm holding on to him, that's for sure. Okay. Now let's see what else. Acuna, yes, we talked about that. I must scroll down here. That's another guy, Mitch. Edouard Julien, who I just drafted thanks to George. Another guy, George, got me Edouard Julien. So here's my observation. You know, I've been preaching about drafting outfielders early, and yes, I agree with that to a point. You wait too long on middle infield, and the same death valley will happen to you as outfielders. In fact, in my drafts, I've been taking care of my middle infield last, and I'm about to get stuck with Vaughn Grissom at shortstop. And I still see a couple of outfielders available, and I definitely don't need any more outfielders. So I think there's got to be a compromise in here about, my craziness about saying I'm not drafting Bobby Witt, I'm not drafting Lindor, I'm not drafting, these guys in the middle infield simply because it's so deep. Well, obviously, if you wait too long on anything, there's going to be nothing left. So Yamamoto, King Turd's favorite, pitched yesterday. Now, we're expecting on March 20th to be Yamamoto versus Yu Darvish in Seoul, and that would be the first MLB opening day game ever started by two Japanese-born pitchers. Now, here's a poll. This is crazy to me. So, of course, Yamamoto is a big favorite. He's a big fan favorite. Very exciting. Another very exciting rookie, young, dude coming up. Now, the question on X was, will Yamamoto be the 2024 National League Rookie of the Year? And 74% of people said yes. Tommy Johnson, great to see you. You're Mr. Positive. I love having you around. Just such a nice thing. All right, here we go. Let's talk Grissom, Zach Neto, or Bryce Terang, because that's what I'm rolling with. Those are my choices. You got Vaughn Grissom, who I was like, okay, first of all, I had this guy on my teams last year. I had Vaughn Grissom and Thairo Estrada. One of them didn't ever play, and the other one did pretty darn good, okay? Vaughn Grissom, 347 ADP. He was in Atlanta last year. I had him on several teams. He's got the potential to steal bases and hit home runs. He hits for good batting average. At this point, his batting average is probably the highest price point for me, because when you get to 347 in the ADP, you're dealing with guys that are hitting 219 and stuff. So with his batting average, his plate discipline is very good. And I think, after doing this, I'm still going to choose Vaughn Grissom. He's still left on the board. I'm praying that he lasts for 2 more picks. He was traded to Boston this offseason. He was down in Atlanta, and he has a career 320 batting average with a career 407 on-base percentage and 1,474 minor league plate appearances. So he's been great down at the minor. But when he did come up to the majors, he also proved that he can hit for average. 287 career in the majors, 5 homers and 5 steals, and only 236 plate appearances. He could get, we're expecting 15 out of him. But let me tell you what he could do. Because let me tell you a little more stats about him. In 2022, he hit 14 homers and stole 32 bases and 600 plate appearances. Last year, it dropped off crazy, 23, 8 home runs, 13 stolen bases, and 550 plate appearances. But one thing that is consistent with him is his batting average, no doubt about it. He has been slowed by a hamstring issue, so far in the early days of camp, but he appears to have made progress. They say that he will have plenty of time to get ready for opening day, and he's projected to be the Red Sox primary second baseman. Look, it's not like the Red Sox are going to be great this year, but that's okay because he's going to get an opportunity to play second base. And right now he qualifies as a shortstop, which is where I desperately need him. But in a few games into the season, he will also have second base eligibility. Now, he's going to play half his games in the second best hitter's park according to StatCast's 3-year rolling average. So Fenway Park does play neutral for righty home runs, but it's the second best doubles park for righties because of that green monster. One of the best also things about Grissom is that because of his great plate discipline, he will be allowed to hit leadoff at least against lefties, but the bottom of the order against righties, and we all know how that works out. If this guy impresses at the top of the order, he'll get pushed up the batting order. There's no doubt about it. If he shows that he could spring speed, if he shows his speed and steals some bases early on, gets on base like a leadoff batter should, then he will not be stuck at the bottom of the order. I don't care what any projection system says. He will start out the year at the bottom of the order, but he will get to move up if he is good, right? Now, Zach Neto is a little interesting, but not so much after I started reading into him. Zach Neto, 23-year-old shortstop, ranking 316 ADP, so he's actually going ahead of Vaughn Grissom. He started last year with Double-A Rocket City. He was promoted to the majors. He did have a slow start, but he raised his OPS to 769 before he got injured in mid-June with a left oblique strain. So he returned after the All-Star break. He had a 566 OPS over the next 3 weeks before he went back to the injured list with back stiffness. He came back in early September, but he did continue to struggle. He ended the season with a .225 batting average, 9 home runs, 5 stolen bases. So he's got below average power, but he should still hit 10 to 15 home runs. But he has enough speed to generate double-digit stolen bases. His primary asset is getting on base. If you're not in an on-base percentage league, that helps you none, okay? His batting average balls in play was low, but not extremely low, and not a good enough excuse to be so bad. Someone brought him up to me the other day. He doesn't have a lot of experience in the major leagues, but I'm going to pass on Neto for Vaughn Grissom. Now, the next guy that also was brought up to me by the great George, Bryce Turang, the second baseman for the Milwaukee Brewers. Uh-oh, Laura. They did give him an MRI. Laura, breaking news. She says the MRI on Acuna showed irritation around Acuna's right meniscus. Just in, breaking news from Laura. The queen of sniping me. That's See, great. Here's how it works. Laura won last year, okay? So I told Laura this year, I'm just going to pretend like you swiped every one of my players so that when it comes down to you winning and me not winning, I'm blaming it on you, Laura.
We still got to pay her, too.
We still got to pay you. We're going to pay you with lunch and cash, but we have to get Lenny over to the diner to meet you and Mary, so I just can't wait to do that. Anyway, she also adds on that the reigning NL MVP will be further evaluated by Dr. Neil in Los Angeles on Monday, but the expectation is still that he'll be ready for the start of the regular season, so that I think that last little part was directed at the fantasy managers of the world. Don't fret. Acuna will be okay. Your whole season is not over, but it could be if you lose Acuna, because I'm telling you what, that number 1 pick in a snake draft is an absolute nightmare. It is not what you're hoping for. The only good thing that comes out of it is getting Acuna, and that is to be decided. So let's get back to business with Bryce Turang. The fantasy outlook on him Now, this guy is very interesting. His ADP is 370. He's only 24 years old. His legs are where it's at. Of course, elite speed, 26 bases and 30 attempts last year at the major league level. His fantasy upside is limited because he makes weak contact, as well as the fact that he will be constantly down at the ninth spot of the lineup. He does have dual eligibility. I do not care about that. I already have a couple of second basemen. In fact, I have a second baseman on my middle and a second baseman. So I'm looking for the shortstop guy, okay? Now, this guy does qualify as shortstop. 370 ADP. He does have a remaining option. And is that the deal breaker here? Because I'll tell you what, if he starts struggling, they could send him down. Now, I don't have the depth chart in front of me, but I'm almost positive that he will absolutely get to play the second base, I think he's the starting second baseman, but he will be down in the ninth spot. And after all of this, even though you'll probably get a few more stolen bases out of Bryce Turang, do you sacrifice the batting average that Vaughn Grissom is going to give you? Both of these guys are going to be qualified multiple positions, second base and shortstop. I'm taking Vaughn Grissom. He will have a chance to bat at the top of the order against lefties. He's going to get an opportunity to play every day because the Red Sox are desperate. And even though his defense sucks, he is now a major leaguer. All right, moving on. Nick Ahmed played his first game in a San Francisco Giants uniform yesterday. He hit a 3-run home run. Okay. The Rays, they lost one of their depth infielders. All right. Yu Chang will be out 6 to 8 weeks after suffering an oblique strain. He's mostly a defensive guy, so that's why you don't really know about him in fantasy. Taylor Walls is opening up the season on the injured list. So the Rays have declared Jose Caballero their expected starter at shortstop. Ahmed Rosario, though, don't forget about Ahmed Rosario. Lenny loves this guy. He's got multi-position eligibility, and he's going to be Caballero, or, I'm not great with the Spanish, but, You know what I'm talking about. You'll see him on the depth chart if you go over there, okay, to the Rays. Freddie Peralta, Laura. Let's talk about him. George loves this guy. I almost went out of my comfort box and drafted Freddie Peralta. But look, last year, 210 strikeouts for this guy. He went 12-10 with a 3.86 ERA and a 1.12 WHIP. He was limited to 18 outings. That included 17 starts in 2022. He set career highs in starts, which was 30, and innings, which was 165. He was one of the best strikeout pitchers in the league. Dang, this dude. This is why I know that George has a crush on this guy. 30% strikeout rate, okay, was fourth in the league, and his .211 batting average against, that is elite. This is the problem with Freddie Peralta, drafting him so early. 1.4 home runs per 9, that was double the number of home runs that he gave up in 2022. So that's why his ERA was 3.86. But his 1.12 whip and 7.9% walk rate, those were pretty strong. 16% home run to fly ball ratio was well above his career average. So we have to assume it was a little bit of a fluke that he was allowing so many home runs. But if he can cut down the home runs, this guy could be one of the best pitchers in baseball. I agree with George, but I was too... I'm not gonna use the word, but I was too wimpy, okay? I was too much of a wimp to draft him. 64 ADP is still just too high, but because Laura drafted him, he's probably gonna be great. All right, CJ Cron signed with the Red Sox on a minor league deal. It includes an invitation to spring training. The Red Sox needed somebody, all right, to compete with Bobby Dalbec, which isn't much of a competition at all, okay? And this is just for a role as a slugger off the bench. Cron, he's a little old in the tooth, So 248 batting average with a 295 on base percentage, and he's always going to hit home runs, so he did that. 12 homers and 278 plate appearances last year, but he had nagging back injuries. He's 34 years old, and he's not a great bet to be healthy, especially since you have the up-and-coming Triston Casas playing first base for the Red Sox. Now, the Mariners told reporters yesterday that Matt Brash has medial elbow inflammation. He will start playing catch on Tuesday, but he probably will not be ready for opening day. It's still a positive development considering the fact that earlier in the week they were saying that he might miss the entire season, okay? Now here's a tidbit. Gotta run. Great to see you, Tommy Johnson. James Case says, skip Bryce. Laura already broke the news, Leonard, about Acuna. They still expect him to be ready for opening day. Now, let's move on here. Now, let me just tell you one little tidbit before I move on to you're going to think that Justin Steele is my kid or something, okay? That's how much I'm going to fight to make my case for you. For Justin Steele. I can only do this because I've already drafted most of my leagues where Justin Steele has either been taken or he's not available. But my case for Justin Steele is a solid one, and I'm going to tell you exactly why you should not be looking at velocity as your number one asset of a pitcher. Because, as my meme goes, I do not care how fast you throw ball 4. Blast from the past here with Greg Maddux. He got over 1,500 batters out with 0-2 pitches. Now, it doesn't seem like it should be very hard to do, but 1,500 times he did it, so that is not going to happen anymore. Now, will Spencer Strider strike out 250 batters during the season, the regular season? 80% of X-users said yes, 20% said no. Cole Ragans, the most overrated starting pitcher in fantasy baseball. 3 innings pitched, 1 hit, no earned runs, 1 ball, 3 strikeouts, 40 pitches, 27 of them were strike. He did great in the 3rd inning. 8 pitches, 8 strikes. That's all it took to get out of that inning. Now, look. Cole Ragans, I don't know what the love is for this, okay, but I will tell you, he finished the season very strong, okay, but he did allow 4 or more runs in 2 of his last 3 starts, and he went 3 consecutive outings of at least 6 innings. He issued 4 walks in back-to-back starts, which, now, here's the thing, it's a tale of 2 guys here with Cole Ragans, and look at his overall stats with 3.47 and a 1.16 whip. He had some excellent times, and he also had some very poor times, which led to a good numbers overall, right? So he was actually a reliever for the Rangers, and he walked and he allowed home runs and all of this stuff and out of the bullpen, right? So they literally traded this guy for freaking Aroldis Chapman, okay? So that's how much Cole Ragans meant to the Texas Rangers. Still, when he got to Kansas City, he absolutely lit it up, okay? He lit it up. He had a stretch of pitching, which is leading right to this 117 ADP. He gained velocity. Whoop-de-doo. What did he do with that velocity? Well, he reduced his walks and his home runs, and all of his outcomes matched his potential, they say. But he still pitches for a bad club, Kansas City, and RotoWire compares this guy to Nick Lodolo, and he's a lefty. They expect him 3.78 ERA, a 1.20 whip, and 157 strikeouts next year. Now, fine, okay, he threw 96 innings total. And, well, let me take that back. He threw 96 innings in the majors, and 12 of those appearances were starts. He threw about 130 innings if you add up his minor and his major league innings last year. And in 2022, he threw about the same, so 130 innings. And look, I don't look at this as a huge downside. The guy threw 130 innings. There should be no reason why you shouldn't expect 150, 160 innings out of this guy. And honestly, how much higher do you get than that? There's only a couple workhorses left in baseball that can still even push out 170, 180, or 190 innings, okay? How do we know his K rate is real when he never showed this in the minors? Because this guy's K rate, holy moly, his K rate, I'll tell you what. He's got a good K rate. Now, I'm just telling you that he's absolutely overrated. He is 26 years old, and you got Justin Steele, who's 28 years old. He had a 3.06 ERA, a 117 whip, 176 strikeouts last year, and I just don't see why that isn't good enough for all of these people. But the argument is that he's not that good. But the real argument is that he's not that exciting, because Justin Steele has a velocity of 92 miles an hour on his fastball, and that is exactly what it comes down to when we're talking about Justin Steele. Nobody likes this guy because his velocity is not high. And like I said, and I will say it a million times, I could care less how fast you throw a ball for, how fast you throw the ball that gets hit out of the park. I don't care. I'm telling you what, these guys, I went out, I looked at all my favorite pitchers that I'm targeting this year, and they all have this weak-ass velocity, and they're all falling down the draft board because of it. You got Sonny Gray, his average fastball velocity is 93. Logan Webb, 93. Zach Gallen, 93.6. Jordan Montgomery, 93 average exit velocity. Bring on the low velocity starting pitchers for me. I'll tell you why. Justin Steele is 28 now. He came up to the majors in 2021. He only pitched 57 innings in the majors, and he had a 4.26 ERA, which is not horrible. It's not great. In 2022, Justin Steele pitched 119 innings with 111 hits allowed. He always strikes out more batters than innings. He lowered his ERA to 3.18. Now, that was 2022, and he comes back last year again. He is not given the love that he deserves. He pitched 173 innings last year, allowed 167 hits, struck out 176 batters with a 3.06 ERA. You're telling me that you're going to take Cole Reagans over this guy? You're out of your mind. Now, that is the one thing I could say for sure. Now, it gets a little bit more dicey when we start talking about Grayson Rodriguez. Let me have a sip of coffee, and then I'll continue to yell at you. I'm not really yelling at you. I'm just excited. I love the low velocity starting pitchers. That's all there is to it. They don't get hurt. They're freaking workhorses. They pitch good. I mean, not all low velocity pitchers are good, obviously, but that group of people that I just read to you are my go-to guys, and I'm taking them in every league proudly, even if they don't even have a team, like Jordan Montgomery, because, well, it is true. You have a better chance of staying healthy if you don't throw your arm out, okay? If you're not trying to throw the ball 100 miles an hour every time you throw, you tend to have better command. You tend to get the ball on the ground more often. Anyway, let's talk about your boy, Grayson Rodriguez, who's 24 years old and very exciting, if I do say so myself. And we'll talk about exciting with the 97.4 mile an hour average exit velocity on this guy's fastball. When I went to argue about Justin Steele versus Grayson Rodriguez, the response that I got is that Steele has poor velo. Okay, poor velo. I don't consider a 93 mile an hour poor velo at all. I don't know why the adjective poor is thrown in there, but okay. He has poor velo for a starter, and he relied on a low walk rate and great command. He's trying to tell me that command is a hard thing to repeat, and regression is on either greatly impacts his performance. Now, regression on command absolutely would affect his performance, but he then reiterates that his velocity is so low that he needs that great command. Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's called movement. A lot of these pitchers, and I learned this from Eno Sarris in person, he said that these pitchers have movement or velocity on their fastball. We're talking about when you're throwing the ball 92 miles an hour, you don't throw it straight over the plate. When you're throwing 100 miles an hour, you know what? That ball has very little breaking movement on it. And unless you're an extreme example here, but he says Grayson Rodriguez has strong velo, so if his control or command tick up, his upside is higher. The thing is, honestly, I guarantee Malpal will have a much better reason, okay, about drafting Grayson Rodriguez over Justin Steele, because this idea that command is not easy to repeat is a bunch of baloney, okay? That's a baloney, because if you have command, that's fine, but I've seen a ton of pitchers come and go that throw 95, 98, 99 miles an hour, and they don't make it because they never get their command right. They're too busy. They just can never get the ball where they want it. Now, he did bring up that Steele went from a 9.8% walk rate in 2022 to a 5% in 2023, and Grayson Rodriguez's walk rate was 8.2 as a rookie. Well, yes, and Justin Steele's was 9.8 as a rookie, and he came back and had it down to 5, and he's basically saying that because Grayson Rodriguez's walk rate started at 8.2 and Steele started at 9.8, that Grayson Rodriguez has a better chance of getting his command better. That doesn't make any logical sense to me. I told the guy, you're drafting this guy on potential. I'm taking a guy who has showed improvement each of the last 3 seasons, okay, in the majors. This is not somebody that was excellent in the minors and then all of a sudden sucked in the majors, but now he's supposed to be good. No. There are a ton of pitchers that never make it in the majors. There's a ton of hitters that are great in the minors and they never can bring that talent up to the majors, and it doesn't pan out. And I told the guy, he's improved the last 3 years in his walk rate. He's improved his command, and he threw 170 innings last year without getting hurt. And part of the reason is the fact that he has low velo. But Grayson may have the highest upside. I'll give you that. But he also has a dismal floor. We're talking if this guy can't get his command right, then he will be sent down to the minors again, and he will give you nothing as a fantasy owner. And maybe that's better than giving you a 4.8 ERA and a 1.4 whip. I'm not saying that's going to happen to Grayson, but when you're trying to win fantasy, you draft the guy that's going to give you the best chance to win. That's my opinion. Now, like I said, Malpal absolutely probably has a better reason for drafting Grayson Rodriguez above Justin Steele. This guy does not have a great reason, and I'm telling you, Justin Steele is not related to me, but I love him where he's going in ADP. He is a target of mine, and I'll take those low velo guys all day long. All right, now, AJ Hinch, talk about another overrated pitcher. We only have a few minutes left, but AJ, I was really wondering if I was going to have enough to talk about today. I was like, how am I going to get through a whole show? Oh, I better take a tidbit from here and a tidbit from there. I could probably talk for like 2 more hours. I hardly even got to our drafts today, okay? So, AJ Hinch, he says Tarik Skubal is going to be the opening day starter against the White Sox, another very overrated fantasy guy, okay? Now, this is one thing. Tarik Skubal impressed everybody. And by the way, 2 or 3 years ago, I remember talking about Tarik Skubal on Sirius and about his absolute monster fastball, 100 miles an hour we're talking. So yes, very exciting. And to top off the fact that he's so exciting with this fastball, he did a good job last year. He logged a 2.80 ERA, a .90 whip, and 102 strikeouts in 80 and a third innings. In 15 starts. That was for the Tigers last year because he started the season with an injury, a flexor tendon injury. He's a lefty. Now, a thing you got to remember with him, he actually did pitch 149 innings for Detroit in 2021. So the fact that he pitched 80 innings does not mean that he can't pitch 150 innings. He certainly can, and he is the opening day starter for this guy, for this team. So, yes, his ERA was absolutely fantastic last year. He went 4-1 with a 1.25 ERA and a .67 WHIP with 52 strikeouts and only 6 walks in his final 6 starts of the season. And by the way, each of those 6 starts were 6 innings. All right. Detroit's going to give him no run support. Okay, he's going 57 ADP. Let's say he pitches to his best. Is he worth 57 ADP? Let me go back to Justin Steele for a second. Just kidding. Just kidding. I'm done talking about Justin Steele. But there's some other guys I might take 57. 57 overall is like round, what are we talking here? Round 5? Round 5. Tarek Skubal, and I know he's already been drafted in all our leagues, so I'm not putting down anybody who drafted him because he certainly is exciting. His changeup is absolutely fire, okay? 50% whiff rate on his changeup. He also has a 4-seamer. He has like 3 or 4, maybe 5 different pitches that he uses. He uses a lot of pitches in his arsenal. Also, another pitcher that we're talking about maybe overrated is Tyler Glasnow. You know, I don't think he is overrated. Lenny took him in our best ball league just now. He looked pretty darn good in his second start yesterday. Okay, he retired 9 of the 10 batters that he faced. He walked 1 and struck out 5. And the question is not, is Glasnow a great pitcher? The question is, can Glasnow stay healthy all season? And that's a question for every pitcher. So that's that. One more thing, though. I want to bring up Dodgers Emmett Sheehan. Emmett Sheehan is a guy that is going to get into the rotation until your boy Walker Buehler is healthy. Now, I don't understand why Walker Buehler is not healthy at this point. The guy's been out with Tommy John for 2 years now. I realize it was his second Tommy John. I don't know how that could take 2 years instead of 1 year to rehab from, but give me a break. Anyway, this guy has been good down in the minors, and he also pitched 120 innings last year he pitched 120 innings. Emmett Sheehan is who I'm talking about. Now, one thing about him is that he's been much better in the minors than the majors. And like I mentioned already today, there has been a lot of examples of guys just being aces in the minors and then coming up and not being able to throw and not being able to get away with it to major league hitters. So I'll tell you what, though, this Emmett Sheehan is a guy to watch this spring. And if you do draft Walker Buehler, I would turn around and get Emmett Sheehan as a handcuff here because his ADP is 266, but this guy is a strikeout king. They compare him to Joe Ryan. He struck out 102 batters in 63 innings between AA and AAA, but he has not been able to get it done in the majors. Now, he made 11 starts last year in the majors, but he allowed multiple homers in 4 of the 11 starts. He walked 26 batters and gave up 11 home runs in 60 and a third inning. He did limit batters to a 205 average the first time through the order, but it's his problematic, okay? He's got a problematic situation here because it's the rising fastball that he uses. It's a rising fastball. He uses it 60% of the time, and they can't hit it the first time through the lineup, right? I told you 205 batting average the first time through the order, but it rose 50 points the next time through the order, and 7 of the home runs that he allowed out of 11 came the second time through the order. So we'll see how they absolutely use him going forward. Now, I had a lot of stuff to talk about, but Edwin Diaz, Starling Marte. Look, I should be done, but let me just give you a little thing about Starling Marte goes, okay? Now, Marte is a Met, as you know, Laura. He's 35 years old, okay, but he's still stealing bases. The guy is successful on stolen base. He went 24 for 28 in stolen base attempts last year. Now, he only played 86 games because he's not as sturdy, okay, as he should be. He missed time because of migraines. Then he had season end early August due to a right groin injury. Now, what they're saying about him now is that he hit a bunt single yesterday to open the game and then moved toward the right field line. He is good defensively. He absolutely snagged a fly ball and threw out Dylan Carlson at third base. He had double groin surgery last offseason, but I'll tell you this. He played in the Dominican Winter League this offseason. He reported to spring camp healthy. He played just 86 games last year, and he doesn't have a great batting average. Not last year he didn't, but they're expecting it to be much higher. Part of the reason his batting average was 248 is because of his injuries, but he did have double groin surgery in November of 2022, so he did he play at all last year? He played a little bit, 86 games. So in November, he had season-ending surgery in August. That was because of a right groin issue. That's August of 23. He also had double groin surgery in November of 22. I'll tell you what, though, he posted a weighted runs created plus of 108 and 134 the previous 5 seasons between those two numbers. Last year's 76 was absolutely low for his career, but his batted ball skills are good. He's still running. His exit velocity was actually his highest since 2019. His hard hit rate was a career best. Look, you could take a chance on this dude. He is going to get to play all the time, okay? He is injury prone and he's got groin troubles constantly. What do you think, Laura? Do you like Starling Marte? Of course you're going to root for him because you're a big Mets fan. ADP 234, that's all I got. Love it. Have a great day to everybody, and we will see you in the draft room. And by the way, Malpal just texted me and said he's at the gym and he will explain it to me why he drafted Grayson before Steele. But he did say it was a hard choice, and that makes me happy.
Lady in the Legend.
Lady in the Legend tomorrow. And I now have made the executive decision to make the clock 3 hours instead of 4. We need to pick up the pace a little bit. So, look, the clock stops early at night, but that doesn't mean you should stop drafting if it's your turn and you're awake. Lenny and I promise to put picks in the queue accordingly and at least put 1 or 2 picks on auto when we go to bed because we have a schedule of sleep like the chickens. We go to bed with the chickens and we rise with the roosters. Have a great day, everybody.